There has been an increase in teen use. We all know that. Youth abuse is going up. We all know that. A couple of things, and we're going to run through these slides relatively quickly, but a couple of things to understand to just kind of put you in the framework is a good rule of thumb on marijuana grows, whether they be clandestine or they be legal, is what I like to use is 1 plant, 1 pound, $1,000. It's just the easiest to do that. Now it's more than that. I'm being very conservative in my numbers, but remember, 1 plant, 1 pound, $1,000. So out of 1 plant, you can get 1 pound of marijuana product, and in Colorado, the retail is about $1,000. It's actually more than that, but that's just a good rule of thumb. So when you hear, oh, it's only 30 plants, well, that's 30 plants, that's $30,000, that's 30 pounds of marijuana. So it kind of gives you a contextual framework when you're looking at these grows. So just in 2016, we investigated 127 marijuana grows. Out of those, we busted illegally and filed charges on 36, actually 38 of them, and our prosecution success was 98%. It would have been 100%, but we had a new attorney that didn't know what was going on, so 98%. So again, that's the key on these clandestine grows. You have to have a teamwork framework to do that with your district attorney. So it's not just the cops. So don't be down too much on your cops if they're not doing this. So you heard them talking about, you know, the cops weren't doing anything. They legalized marijuana in Amendment 64, and everybody was afraid. All the cops had, there was a couple cases out of Denver that said that put the price tag on 1 plant at $1,000. That was litigated. That was dicta. That was not precedent-setting case law. However, it was coming out of Denver District Court, and they had identified $1,000 for 1 plant. And so all the law enforcement agencies in the state were like, hey, I don't want to get sued for a $1,000 plant. I mean, I just took down almost 1,000 plants the other day, right? It's $1 million. And if I'm civilly liable as the sheriff, I don't want to put that burden on my constituents, right? So it really spooked law enforcement, and it spooked the DAs. And you know, all of law enforcement. So we were kind of, well, wait a minute here. They just legalized this stuff, and I don't want to get sued. So I started doing some research. I have just enough law experience with my law degree to get me in trouble. So came up with these 4 cases. This People versus Krause case is actually out of District Attorney May's jurisdiction, and everybody was saying, oh my gosh, you're going to get sued. So for a period of time, we weren't even pulling plants. Remember the old days we used to just jerk the plants out? We weren't even pulling plants anymore. We were that afraid as law enforcement. We were clipping. We were putting them in little baggies, and then we were giving them a little piece of paper and say, don't do anything with this marijuana grow until I get back. You can't make this up. We did that for a couple of years, right? And we were like, well, that's nuts. I took down a marijuana grow in 2015. I had to post a deputy there, and we had to let the young man who was responsible to water the plants into the house twice a day. That's crazy, right? So these cases came out. This Young versus Larimer County case is a good one for the law enforcement. But People versus Krause, and it was just decided last December, went all the way to the Supreme Court. Everybody said, oh, they're going to pay out all this money. Basically, the facts are, and these aren't specific, the facts are they busted a guy in medical marijuana. They took him to trial. I think it was 60 plants, wasn't it, Dan? It was 60, 68 plants, whatever. They bust this guy. He's doing it illegally. They take him to trial, and he's acquitted, found not guilty. So he gets done and he says, I've been acquitted, I want my marijuana plants back. Well, they were soup in the evidence, right? Because when you pull them, they die. And they get moldy, and they literally turned into soup. So he sues them for the amount that out of the Denver District Court had get $1,000 plant. So he sues the Colorado Springs Police Department. He's going to get his money back. And that's the Krause case. And it takes years for this thing to go through. So I'm probably going to get this wrong. Please, Mr. May, correct me if I'm wrong. He goes to the first one and he wins, and they order Colorado Springs to pay him. That's the district court. And then they appeal it to the appellate court, and the appellate court reverses it?
No, we lose 2-1.
Oh, okay, you lost. So they lost it to the appellate court. The appellate court says, yep, pay him. And then it goes to the Supreme Court. Not until December of last year, the Supreme Court say, no, that's a federally illegal substance. And so then it was game on. We're jerking plants like nobody had. Although I was doing it before. But now, the case law is clear now. We have a bright line rule that law enforcement can now work with. And I see more and more district attorneys coming on board. And so the Young versus Larimer also said just about the same thing in a different case, and it was very well received as well. North Glen versus Adams County, if you want to look up any of these, let me know, I'll get you the sites. But North Glen versus Adams County had to do with money and taxation. And they worked that out because they went in and changed the law, which is what they do a lot. So what I'm fighting about, understand, we have the legal regulated market on one side, and you have the clandestine or illegal black or gray market, as they call it. I don't call it the gray market, it's a black market. The reason they coined the phrase gray market is because they're growing it legally, quote unquote legally, under the medical marijuana provisions in Amendment 20, and then they don't become black market or illegal until they divert it out of state. So that's where they coined the term gray market. So Amendment 20, as you remember, medical, we'll flip through these pretty quickly, allows patients to grow up 6 plants, no big deal, right? Well, the problem with the medical marijuana is that I can also go and get an extended plant count up to 99 plants, right? So if me and my wife and another couple are living in a home and we all get driver's licenses and we all get extended plant counts, my plant count at my home legally could be up in excess of 512 plants. And I've gone to many, many grows where they're growing over 500 plants legally. Right? It's not till they divert it that it becomes illegal. So that was really the conundrum we found ourselves in. And that's really who's exacerbating the loopholes in Amendment 20. But it all bleeds together with Amendment 64. I give a lot of courses, and I have 2 bags of 1 pound apiece. It's oregano, it's not marijuana, but I pull up the 1 bag of oregano and I said, this is a pound of medical marijuana, this is a pound of recreational marijuana. Can you tell the difference? Yeah, neither can we. We don't have x-ray vision as law enforcement. So what we're really fighting about, and I want to really kind of narrow this down and stay in my lane, so what we're really fighting in law enforcement is this December of 2013, and you can read the numbers, but 5% of all the patients had an extended plant count. By 2016, it was 8%. So that 3%, that's really what we're fighting as law enforcement. That 3% growth in extended plant counts. And that's why it was so important that we got that cap on the plant counts of the legislation this year. And that was House Bill 1220, if you want to look that up. It's House Bill 1220. House Bill 1220 was a success that we had in the legislature this year. The sheriffs were very instrumental in pushing this legislation forward. They said, look, I shouldn't be able to come from another state with my wife and another couple and grow 500 plants in a home, in a residential area, right? And so we got that passed, and that goes into effect in January. That's going to give us another bright line rule with respect to this. So that's really what we're hitting. So I always like to do a little scenario, and you do it on your own. It's just do the math on a 50 plant count. 50 plants, 410,000 marijuana plants. So remember, 1,000, 1 pound, 1 plant, right? It's 410,000 plants. This is just the 3% we're talking about. Right, 50 plants each, that's the extended, it's not even up to 99. Grown by the 2,541 lives. We have more weed in Colorado for every man, woman, and child times 10. Really? It's just insane, the amount of weed we have. At just 50 plants and 8,200 patients, at that 3%, they can produce 1.6 million pounds of marijuana a year. That's a lot of marijuana. That'd be a lot of corn, that'd be a lot of beans. So this is you've heard from down in Pueblo, one of the biggest, what I call unintended consequences, although we knew it was coming, is the increase in our homeless population, the increase in what we call, and they hate this term, marijuana immigrants. You're getting them in your schools, you're getting them in rural Colorado, they're coming up here with their families to either grow marijuana or work in the industry. Problem is, half of them are felons. And so once they come and fill out their paperwork, they realize they can't work in the industry because they're felons and they're living out of their car. So they go to the local homeless shelter, and that's it. Ann Stallman from Pueblo will tell you the first year of legalized marijuana, the year before, she serviced 356 families, January the 1st to March 31st of that year. The next year we legalized marijuana, she serviced 1,426 families in that same period of time. So it almost quadrupled. And here's the kicker, and you've heard this, and I hate this word. My dad's an English professor, my degree's in English, and I absolutely hate this word, anecdotal. The first year we were telling them, look what's happening. Ann Stadelman was telling them from Posada's standpoint, the medical community was telling them from the medical community, law enforcement was telling them from law enforcement, they were saying, you know, that's all anecdotal. And you heard the governor point to that. Well, we just don't have the data, right? So if you don't have the data, it's anecdotal. I heard that so much that first year, I tried to take it out of my vocabulary. We know what's going on the ground, where the rubber meets the road. But it wasn't until we got our data. So what happened? We all, law enforcement, when I say we, I mean law enforcement, we all recoded our record management systems to identify cases that our law enforcement officers went to where marijuana was either present, was involved, was the causal connection. We're not saying that it's because of marijuana. We just wanted to code this because we didn't know before. In the 80s, quite frankly, and this is my 30th year in law enforcement. In the 80s, we had almost decriminalized marijuana ourselves. If we arrested someone for domestic violence, if we arrested someone for DUI, they had a bag of marijuana in their pocket, we dumped it out. We flushed it down the toilet, we threw it in the trash. Because at that point, it was a class 1 petty offense. It wasn't even jailable. If I had time, I'd tell you the story about my first drug bust. My sergeant called me and said, did you take this guy to jail? I said, yeah, Sarge, I caught him in an alley with a bag of weed. He goes, good, go get him and take him home and give him a ticket. Because you can't put him in jail for this crime. It's a class 1 petty offense. I was so disappointed. At any rate, so we had almost decriminalized it. It wasn't until the state decided to legalize it and tax it that it exploded in our laps again. We had it. Okay, I mean, we're still doing the big grows, you know, the big distributors were coming into the state with bales and bales and distributing it. But anyway, so our homeless population, you guys all know this, has exploded. Unintended consequences, Mad America. This is a doctor out of Pueblo as well. She's an addiction psychiatrist. We know that it exacerbates or increases the likelihood of schizophrenia, right, in our children. When that data comes in, it's going to be astronomical. We already know this. It's not anecdotal, but they're all waiting on the data. So now that once we got the data, we went back to try to get it out of Pueblo, right? And this is something a lot of people don't know on Amendment 64. This is how it kind of segues in. Amendment 64 had a subsection or a subsection called subsection F. Nobody read it, number one. We just passed it, legalized it, nobody read it. Well, I read it. It has a subsection F. And subsection F says that if a community does not want to have the industry or sell it or have dispensaries within the confines of their community, they can opt out. Well, a lot of people must have read that. Pueblo didn't read it. We never got a say. Our commissioners said, Amendment 64 passed. It passed 60-40. Come on in, industry. Right? And so they got their roots in real quick. 72% of all the communities in the state of Colorado have opted out. You only have 6 or 8 large communities in this state that are involved in marijuana production. That's it. I'll give you a prime example. City of Lakewood. City of Lakewood, Amendment 64. They voted 60-40 in favor of Amendment 64. 60-40. Thumbs up, we want legalization. When they got an opportunity to vote based upon subsection F, they voted 60-40 to get it out, to keep it out. Legalize it, but we don't want it in our backyard. Right? So the justification of our commissioners in Pueblo County that, hey, the county voted 60-40 to have it, that's good enough for us, let's bring it in. We never got a voice. The 60-minute piece will tell you we didn't get a voice until 2016, last year, to vote on that. Well, by 2016, we were 3 years in, right? And let me tell you another quick thing.